Discovered my wife's informal will after her family looted our home while I was tending to our injured son. My wife died suddenly in an accident that critically injured our son. Suffice it to say, along with being shattered, the whole matter has me rather preoccupied. Her family arrived rather quickly and took charge of a lot of things, especially the funeral. It was helpful because my focus needed to be on my son. I was pretty much a guest at my own wife's funeral, because although I was there for a brief while, it was on a day when my son was scheduled for a rather serious procedure, and so my time was divided. All the while, I could hear Suzanne, my wife, in my mind telling me to take care of Zach and not worry about the formalities. So I basically just gave my in-laws my checkbook. I'm not complaining about that. What happened next is different. They wanted to take some of her things, and of course I understood the value in their having a keepsake of their sister/daughter. I would never have said no. But they took everything. Keep in mind, I wasn't there, my younger son wasn't in the house at the time either. The next time I was home, I realized that they basically cleaned the house out of everything they thought was hers, including photo books. Hours before this, my wife's older sister even went so far as to say she wanted to take PJ, my younger son, saying I needed time and that he would be better with them. I shot that down before she ever finished the idea, though I tried not to let my anger show. In the immediate, my feeling was I'm not going to deal with this right now. I simply didn't have the time or bandwidth to deal with it then. Not long after, my wife's sister called asking about several pieces of jewelry, claiming them as heirlooms to the family. That prompted me to recall a safe deposit box that my wife kept. I never thought we needed it. When I went to close it out, I found the jewelry. They're not getting the jewelry, but also among the papers, I found that she had a will. It wasn't formal, but it was detailed, and I later learned that it is enforceable. Key to note, my brother-in-law, after learning that his wife took such things as our photo books, demanded that she return them. She refused. My lawyer has been communicating with me constantly since the accident. There are so many details, and I had already given him the will. When I told him that my sister-in-law refused to return the property, which rightfully belongs to our children, he told me he would make a written request for all items to be returned to the executor, me, in order that they can be distributed in accordance to her wishes, and asked me to make a list. This was over a month ago. Today, I get a reply from some attorney stating effectively that I had given them permission, and so all items questioned were gifts. Are you f***ing kidding me? This reply came through my lawyer, wherein he said, now we play hardball. He said he'll seek an order, though I'm not sure if that requires a trial. I meet with him next week. I would be passive in the shadow of all this shit if it meant protecting my boys from a family upset, but a line has been crossed. I want my sons to have a good relationship with their mother's family. That's paramount, and I would do whatever it took to ensure that. Now we're about to get into a legal dispute and things are likely to go badly. My last communication was with my mother-in-law, where she lost her mind on me. We had always been close, so this is also strange to me. She was making demands that were unreasonable. The call ended abruptly when I explained that the boys were my children, that I would decide what is in their best interest, and suggested that she not test me. I'm done playing. I don't need this shit. I buried the love of my life. I'm dealing with the after effects of the accident. I am doing everything I can to bring my son back to good, and now I have to deal with this? I haven't told the boys about any of this yet. I hope I won't have to. More than once, one of them asked where this or that is, and I told them that their aunts borrowed them. Who does this? Seriously. Update 1. Many ask that I update, and so I am. I had a long and reasonably deep discussion with Suzanne's mother and sisters earlier today. They speak to the boys, my sons Zach and PJ, on occasion and actively seek the connection. I haven't spoken to them in a while and haven't proceeded with any additional action since the initial request through my attorney that they return her property, now my children's property. It was my wife's older sister's birthday a couple of days ago, and, for all that's happened, I still made sure to send her lilies. Suzanne sent her lilies every year. I guess I was looking to remain human though all this mess, and maybe rubbing their nose a little at the same time. Either way, this was the catalyst for her call today. We spoke for a minute or two before she asked if I would speak to them all, together on Zoom. They were actually standing by as we spoke. So I closed the door of my study and joined them online. As they popped up on my screen, I didn't say anything. I didn't show any emotion at all. This was their invitation, so I would just listen. I had no idea what to expect. Her mother started the conversation by hitting the tough subject head on, saying, "We have the request from your lawyer and we withdraw our answer. We want to comply with everything." Then her older sister added, "And we want to know how we can fix what we broke." For the hell I've been living over this. The relief of their words was enough. I told them, nothing needs to be broken. They asked me if I would listen, and of course I said I would. And for a while I did. I didn't say a word. They were orderly if not rehearsed in their monologue, taking turns and affirming each other. Her mother explained that they were shattered after losing Suzanne and that they seemed to come together as a pack. "We've had some time since those first days and we've talked it through and all of us realized that we weren't thinking," her younger sister said. Part of their grief was anger, they explained. They weren't angry with me, just angry in general. When they were at the house and picking a couple of items to keep, they just kept taking things. Her older sister explained that they were upset that, as Suzanne's husband, I controlled everything and everything defaulted legally to me. She said it shouldn't have upset them, acknowledging that's just how it is, but that they felt secondary. This was the only time I spoke, saying, "I never made you feel secondary. We just wanted her back." One of them said. "Without that, we wanted everything we could have of her." They knew they were wrong, but being wrong only made it worse. They explained it like digging a hole and not being able to get out of it. "So we doubled down," one of them said. Her mother became emotional when she said, "I read the inscription on the box and realized that it wasn't Suzanne's but that she had it made for you." She then said she didn't mean to take it. The inscription she speaks of is carved on the inside lid of a small decorative box that Suzanne gave me years ago. It reads "Still and After All." She always said that to me, especially after I would drive her crazy. Whenever I got Suzanne mad, I'd ask if she loved me. She always said, "Still and After All." Anyone would know that the box means a great deal to me. The upshot is that my brother-in-law will be returning everything next weekend. Her mother emphasized everything. He'll be at driving down and my sister-in-law asked if it might be possible for him to stay over, given that it's a long ride. I told her that Anthony should always consider this his home. And they should too. When they finished, it was my turn. I didn't say much, I didn't want to say a lot. I only told them how much their decision meant to me and the boys. I explained that I understood everything they said. We were all out of our minds, I assured them. I'm relieved and yet cautious. Update 2. My brother-in-law, Anthony, arrived late last night. The boys were already in bed by then. I like Anthony, I always have, he's a good man. He was awkward initially, as if he had some reason to feel guilty. He didn't. I went to work right away at making him feel comfortable and the two of us had a beer outside on the patio. It was good to talk to him and we spent some time reminiscing over some funny memories. It wasn't long before we were relaxed. I convinced him to stay just a bit longer today so that we could take the boys fishing. They love their Uncle Tony and he loves them. I knew it would make them happy and it did. We had a really great time. Sitting with him on the patio last night, I could tell he was exhausted from the drive, and so I told him the guest room was all set for him. But I asked him for his keys, because I wanted to bring everything in while the boys were sleeping. He insisted on helping, and so we emptied his little van. True to their word, everything was there. There were a couple of very obvious items, such as the bell my boys love so much. It's not all that impressive but the sentimental value is very real. Also, their mother's little flower painting was another item of great sentimental value, among other things now returned. The space where her painting hung was starkly cold, but now it's warm again. After getting Zach ready for the day, both boys migrated to their usual place at the counter in the kitchen. Uncle Tony came out as soon as he heard them and their reunion was really wonderful. This is why it was so important to me to keep her family close. I know they love the boys and I know the boys love them. PJ noticed the bell almost immediately. He would hop excitedly as he went over to ring it. He put 2 and 2 together and thanked Anthony for bringing it back, then asked, why did they borrow it anyway? That had been my excuse. I told them that their aunts borrowed a few things. Anthony just smiled and said, I really don't know. It was a perfect answer because the subject was dropped right away. The boys don't need to know, and right now, they don't care. After the bell, Zach's first instinct was to turn to the hall to see if the painting was back. When it was, he and PJ went over to study it, as if it were hanging in a museum. Although they're only boys, clearly these things matter to them. I glanced over to Anthony and saw a smile on his face that can only be described as content. Those who may recall, it was Anthony who demanded his wife, my sister-in-law, return everything. I changed the focus by riling the boys up with the news that we were going to the pier. They were immediately diverted and that was my plan. They may notice other items are back where they belong, but I don't know that they'll think too much into it. There could be no better solution than that. I will have all of my wife's photo books copied for her family, and the next step is to visit with them, to share Suzanne's will, and to give them the things she wanted each of them to have. I will go into the visit renewed, having put this moment behind us. In the end, they did the right thing. Forgiveness, therefore, is the correct response. I've vented about this here before and I've tried everything I know not to come to this place. But here we are. Since losing my wife, her family has acted like entitled vultures. Rather than supporting our children, they came through and stole everything after the funeral while I was in the hospital with my son, who was also in the accident. I tried to settle the matter with them personally, but they ignored me, thinking I'd just let it go. I've been 20 years a slave to these people, playing the part that they expect me to play, trying to keep them happy in the name of family. We're all done with that now. Most of it was resolved when my lawyer sent a demand letter. That action caused them to reach out to me with crocodile tears and apologies and they returned most of the items, but not all. What didn't come back was trivial, for what I knew at the time, and I let it go. At the time, I accepted them, tried to understand them, and was willing to let bygones be bygones for the sake of my sons. Things haven't gotten better. They came at me for Suzanne's insurance. I think that was the beginning of the end for me. She had a will for them, specifically for them, she knew they would do this and tried to mediate it. She was specific to what she wanted to leave them, and I followed it to the letter. Our sons were the only beneficiaries of her insurance policy and I put that policy into trust for each of them, again to the letter. There's nothing else. I finally reached critical mass with these people and shut them down. I cut them off. I won't deal with them any longer, and I told them that, in the end, I would support my son's relationship with them, but it will be lacking the trust that a family should have by default. My sons have picked up on a lot this, and I've been frank with them, and they have become indifferent. They know the score, and they haven't spoken to them much since my elder boy's birthday. That's when they took the event to go after him, which was unacceptable. It kills me, because I've known these people most of my life and a part of me still wants to love them. They're not evil, they're just so very wrong. They have a mindset that never made sense to me. It's a lot of what I've worked around all my life with Suzanne, and she did too. She was nothing like them. After Suzanne, they've done everything wrong to the point where it's irreversible. We don't speak. But this didn't keep them from leaving a message on my phone this past week. I will not respond to it. In it, they said that we needed to discuss Suzanne's affairs. The translation is, we want money. No. My last conversation was about my father-in-law's watch. It took me some time to realize that they had taken it and I wanted it back. I asked for it back. But I also asked them if they planned to gift it to my son themselves, because if so, that would be fine. They've said nothing. I didn't know about the watch at first. I didn't think to look for it in the items that were taken and returned. But when I remembered it, I was upset to find it missing. Before her beloved father died, he was a good man. He gave Suzanne his watch to give to our son Zach on his graduation day. It was a deathbed wish and everyone knew it. The watch, a Rolex, was his prized possession. He bought it in Japan when he was in the service, and he was determined that it go to Zach, not only as the first grandson, but for how deeply he loved him. Suzanne had the watch for a few years before she died. It isn't noted in any will or anywhere else where the law might find it. It was a verbal understanding. She had possession until they took it. And so there's a 9/10 THS thing going on here. A legal he said/she said. My sister-in-law admitted that they had it. I was keen enough to record it, whether admissible or not, I have it. She didn't say which of them was in possession, but that they had it. When I asked for it to be returned, even offering to pay them for it, I get, well, we can talk about that, as if suggesting that it was a chip in their game. The trouble is that I'm not playing anymore. My lawyer is a pit bull, truly a nasty man, excellent lawyer. Ever since his interaction with their counsel over the first wave of nonsense and the demand letter, he was personally pissed. This lawyer of mine isn't a friend per se, but we deal with each other almost every day. Before all this happened, I never realized how thick the legal quagmire is following such an event, so many details. I called him Friday and left a message with his assistant. He called me today, Saturday. He offered to meet me for lunch today. He needs my signature on another item, but we would also be speaking to this petty matter. He reminded me how I resisted legal action in the past, but that maybe it was time. The upshot is that I've greenlighted a lawsuit and he'll get it rolling on Monday. This action will not only cement my separation from them, but will also express my determination to no longer be fooled with. We agreed that it's primarily a message suit. My lawyer explained that it will go one of two ways. First, they will settle by complying, which they partially did last time, and that would be a win. The second is they fight me. If they fight me, I will lose, or best case gain a pittance of a monetary judgment. How much do you want the watch? He asked. Because if it goes that way, he said, the watch is gone. But he was clear to say that we would go forward anyway, adding, I will destroy them in a public forum. Given what they've put me through, and my sons through, he assured me that there's something to be said for that. He told me that he's going to send them a demand letter on Monday, next day delivery, all three, the mother and the two sisters, and give them a minute to reply. On Wednesday, I'll have them served, he said. We're not dicking around. I don't know if he was being metaphoric, but he said, I will breathe on their king necks like a nightmare. You'll pay the process server, the fees, but you won't get a bill from me. He told me. This is not complicated and it's the right thing to do. Last year, this would not have been imaginable. To me, every action I made as man was intended in the preservation of family. You do for family, is my motto. Typing that just now actually pisses me off. You have no idea what I've done for these people and for how long. I think this is the first month that I won't be paying the tax and utilities on my mother-in-law's house. I've paid them since Suzanne's father died. Years, it's part of cutting them off. There are so many examples, and yet for every one of them, I still don't feel like a sucker. I know I did the right thing. The trouble is that, in return, they did the wrong thing. So now I walk away. However this goes from here, it's out of my control, and maybe that's the way it ought to be. It is a mess of their own making. This isn't a sophisticated case, this is a small claim, but they can't ignore it, and the rules are very different. I've watched this lawyer on the offense and it's a scary thing to see, even when he's curtailed by objections and the trappings of the court. These proceedings will lack some of that formality and he's salivating. So I'll turn him loose, I'm ready to do that. I'll either get the watch back or I will make an unmovable point. If I win, my father-in-law's wishes, Suzanne's wishes, will be respected and my son will have what is his. If I lose, they will be publicly shamed for taking that away from him. Either way, I've come a long way this year. I'm no longer the man I was before. I'm not laying down to be rolled over anymore. One of these things needs to happen. I've had a shit ton of drama with my wife's family after she died suddenly. It started when they stole her things, now our children's things, on the day of her funeral, and it's only grown more complicated from there. It's been a real saga. What I didn't know immediately was that they also took a watch that my father-in-law gave to my wife before he died. I've rambled a lot here on this subject and I wouldn't want to put anyone through reading my old posts, so I'll just clip this little bit in, just so that this update might make sense. My lawyer told me from the start that I wouldn't win. He called the suit a message and that he would rip their lives apart, publicly, not only for the watch, but for everything they've put me and my boys through. I had reached a point where that was okay. So they were served and they provided their answer and a date was set, which is coming up soon. I had 2 missed calls from my lawyer today, but that's not unusual. I would just call him back in the morning. We have other business, and I didn't suspect his call was about the watch. I really haven't thought about it. I read an email from him tonight which proved otherwise. He wrote to tell me that they called him today and offered to settle by returning the watch. It was a small claim, so they hadn't lawyered up, and he spoke to my mother-in-law directly. He said she was emotionless. He told me that the watch would be sent to his office and he would let me know the moment it arrived. He insisted that it be insured and sent priority, and she agreed. So it's over. And it's not the watch, it's more than that. These are difficult people. My life as Suzanne's husband was a lot about appeasing them and keeping the peace. I never stood up to them, I only went with the flow in the better interest of family and focused on the good times. Whenever someone had to give an inch, it would be me, and they got used to that. But then they stole from my children and I became someone else. I think they're figuring that out now. I didn't blink. I don't know what any of this means going forward. I will always hope for a better relationship, if only for the boys, and I've wanted it all along and I offered them that. Zach doesn't know anything about this and I'm not sure he needs to. He's making up time and credits because of the accident, but he's on track and his graduation will come and it will be a spectacular victory. I want her family there, for his sake, and we'll let that play out for now. Tonight, I'll focus on the idea that his grandfather's wish will be fulfilled. I know that his mother would be very pleased. Personal comment, while OP is still active, they do appear to be moving on and dealing, so I've marked it as concluded. But like any story, life goes on and they continue to deal with things. OP has many posts that tangentially address the issue, and even more of him simply dealing with recovery from loss, raising his sons as a single dad, and just generally coping with things. I'd encourage you to read through his post history for some incredibly sensitive writing from someone coping with enormous trauma and complex challenges in an incredibly awe-inspiring way. Update 3. It's been several months since I last wrote about the watch situation. Life has moved forward, as it must, though not without its challenges. Zach's graduation is approaching quickly, and I find myself both excited and melancholic. Suzanne should be here for this milestone. The watch arrived at my lawyer's office as promised. When I went to pick it up, he handed me the package with a satisfied smirk. They included a letter, he said. I took the package without opening it there, thanked him for everything, and headed home. Once alone in my study, I carefully opened the package. The watch was there, nestled in its original box, my father-in-law's prized Rolex, still in perfect condition. The letter was brief, written in my mother-in-law's handwriting. This belongs to Zach. We were wrong. We hope someday you'll understand we were just trying to hold on to pieces of Suzanne. We miss her too. I sat with that for a while. The anger I'd been carrying began to feel heavy in a different way. Not gone, but transformed into something more complicated. I tucked the letter away in my desk drawer. Last weekend, PJ asked if we could invite his grandmother and aunts to Zach's graduation. It caught me off guard. The boys haven't spoken much about their mother's family lately, and I've been careful not to influence their feelings either way. Do you want them there? I asked him. Mom would, he said simply. That night, I called my mother-in-law. The conversation was stilted at first, both of us treading carefully. I told her about the graduation, gave her the date and time. There was a long pause before she spoke. Are you sure you want us there? The boys do, I said, and Suzanne would. Another pause. We'll be there. Yesterday, Zach found the watch in my desk while looking for a stapler. I hadn't planned how I would give it to him, but sometimes life makes these decisions for us. Dad, is this Grandpa's watch? He asked, holding it carefully. I nodded. He wanted you to have it when you graduated. Your mom was keeping it for you. His eyes welled up as he turned it over in his hands. I remember him wearing it. He used to let me hold it sometimes. Try it on, I suggested. It was too big for his wrist, but his face lit up anyway. Can I get it sized? Of course. It's yours now. Later that evening, as we sat on the patio, the same spot where Anthony and I had shared beers months ago, Zach asked me about his mother's family coming to graduation. Are you okay with that? He asked. PJ told me he asked you to invite them. I considered my answer carefully. Family is complicated, I said finally, but they loved your mother, and they love you boys. Some things are worth trying to fix. Even after everything? Even after everything. This morning, I received a text from my sister-in-law, the first direct communication in months. She sent a photo of Suzanne from college that I'd never seen before. She was laughing, her head thrown back, looking carefree and beautiful. The message simply read, "Found this. Thought you and the boys might want it." I showed it to the boys at breakfast. PJ studied it carefully before saying, "She looks happy." She was, I told him. Especially when she was with you too. I don't know what graduation day will bring. I'm not naive enough to think one watch and a few tentative communications will heal everything that's broken between us. But for my son's sake, and maybe even for my own, I'm willing to see where this goes. Update 4. Zach's graduation day arrived with perfect weather, sunny but not too hot, with a gentle breeze that seemed almost orchestrated for the occasion. I woke up early, my mind racing through a mental checklist while simultaneously trying to process the emotional weight of the day. Suzanne should be here. That thought never leaves me. PJ was unusually quiet at breakfast, pushing his cereal around more than eating it. When I asked what was bothering him, he looked up with those eyes that are so much like his mother's and said, "Do you think Mom can see us today?" I wasn't prepared for the question, but I found myself nodding. "Still and after all," I said, and he smiled, recognizing her phrase. Zach emerged from his room looking impossibly grown up in his dress shirt and tie, his grandfather's watch gleaming on his wrist. We'd had it sized last month, and he'd been wearing it for special occasions since. He caught me staring and gave me a half smile. "How do I look?" he asked, adjusting his tie nervously. "Like your mother's son," I replied honestly. We arrived at the school early so Zach could line up with his classmates. As PJ and I made our way to the seats I'd reserved, I spotted them, my in-laws standing awkwardly near the entrance. My mother-in-law was clutching a bouquet of lilies, and both sisters were there with their husbands. Anthony waved when he saw us, and PJ broke into a run toward them. I followed more slowly, unsure of what to say after all this time, but my mother-in-law bridged the gap, stepping forward to embrace me briefly before pulling back to look at my face. "Thank you for letting us be here," she said simply. "It's what Suzanne would want," I replied, the same words I'd said on the phone. We sat together, this fractured family, with an empty seat between us that no one mentioned but everyone felt. The ceremony was beautiful in its predictable way, speeches about futures and potential, the calling of names, the turning of tassels. When Zach's name was called, we all stood, applauding perhaps louder than decorum suggested. I caught him looking at us, all of us together, and the smile that spread across his face was worth every uncomfortable moment. After the ceremony, during the mingling and photos, my younger sister-in-law approached me while the others were occupied with Zach. "I found something else," she said quietly, handing me a small envelope. It was in a book of hers I borrowed years ago, before everything. I only discovered it last week. Inside was a birthday card Suzanne had written to me but never given. It was dated just days before the accident. I couldn't read it there, surrounded by people, but I thanked her with a nod that conveyed more than words could. We all went to dinner afterward, a reservation I'd made for just the boys and me, hastily expanded to include the extended family. The conversation was stilted at first, careful topics and excessive politeness, but as the evening progressed, something shifted. Anthony started telling stories about Suzanne as a teenager, and soon we were all contributing memories, laughing at some, growing quiet at others. PJ was fascinated, hearing stories about his mother he'd never heard before. "Tell more about when Mom was little," he kept saying, and my mother-in-law obliged with tales I'd never heard either. As dessert arrived, Zach cleared his throat. "I have something to say," he announced, looking suddenly nervous. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I found this in Mom's jewelry box a few weeks ago. Dad gave me the key when I turned 18. My heart stopped. I hadn't known he'd been looking through her things. "It's a letter she wrote to me for graduation," he explained, his voice steady though his hands trembled slightly. "I want to read part of it to all of you." The table fell silent as he unfolded the paper. "My dearest Zach," he read, "if you're reading this, it means you've reached a milestone I've been imagining since you were born. I write these letters for all your big moments, hoping you'll never need to read them, but wanting you to have my words if somehow I'm not there to speak them." He paused, swallowing hard before continuing. "Remember that family is complicated but essential. We don't choose our family, but we do choose how we love them. Choose generosity and forgiveness when you can. Choose boundaries when you must. But always choose love, even when it's difficult. Especially when it's difficult." My mother-in-law was openly weeping now, and I wasn't far behind. "Your father taught me that," Zach continued reading. "He has always been the one to build bridges while I've sometimes been too quick to burn them. Learn from him in this." Zach folded the paper carefully and looked around the table. "I think she'd be happy to see us all here today." The silence that followed wasn't awkward but reverent, as if we were all acknowledging the presence of the person missing from our table. Later that night, after the boys had gone to bed, I sat on the patio and finally read the birthday card my sister-in-law had given me. Suzanne's handwriting filled the inside, her words both mundane and precious. "To my husband on his birthday, another year of driving me crazy and loving me anyway. Still and after all, right? I'm planning something special for this weekend, so act surprised. The boys are in on it. I love you more than you'll ever know." I sat there for a long time, holding that card and watching the stars. The wound of her absence will never fully heal, but something had shifted today. The jagged edges seemed smoother somehow. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother-in-law. "Thank you for today. Suzanne would be so proud of the man Zach has become. And of you." I typed back simply, "Still and after all. Tomorrow, We would begin the work of rebuilding what was broken. It wouldn't be easy, and some days it might not even seem possible. But today had shown me that Suzanne was right. Family is complicated but essential. And sometimes, even after everything, there's a way forward if we're willing to take those first difficult steps together.